Rev up your engines!
All right, Toyota's Daihatsu is halting shipments on their Daihatsu cars because of safety concerns. Now, if you didn't know it, Toyota owns Daihatsu. 2016, they're a fully owned subsidiary. Before that, Toyota owned 51%, but now they own the whole thing. Here's a picture of one of the cute little key cars. Actually, most of those are illegal in the United States anyways. If you import them, they don't meet crash specifications most of the time. Well, it turns out that it looks like they were testing these things, the airbag systems, with different airbags than they were putting in the actual production ones. Like they were making fancy mock-ups to try to fool the testers that, oh yeah, they pass. Then they find out the ones they're selling to the public had crappy airbags, didn't work as well. That's kind of akin to the Volkswagen Dieselgate, where they had a special software system that when the machine knew it was being tested on a dynamometer for emissions testing, it went into the mode of emissions so that it passed the test. But then when you drove it on the road, it went back to, it polluted more, but it got more power and got better fuel mileage on their diesels. And they had to pay a fortune. It cost Volkswagen hundreds of millions and billions of dollars because they cheated on this, right? They thought they were going to fool people. Well, obviously, this Daihatsu company that Toyota owns has tried the same thing, and now they're withholding the sales so they see what's going on. What they say is Daihatsu rigged side safety tests carried out for 88,000 small cars. Now, it doesn't affect us here in the United States. They used to sell Daihatsus in the United States. They used to sell a Daihatsu charade. So I guess it was a charade of a car. What's this? Oh, it's a charade. That's not a car. Who knows where they come up with these names? But at least it doesn't affect us here in the United States. But it does show Toyota's making some mistakes over there. Buying a company like that that's made some pretty crappy cars over the years. And even though some of them are marketed as Daihatsu, quite a few of them are actually marketed as Toyotas. So they're going to water their name down if they keep diluting everything down. And then they cheated on, it looks like they cheated on these tests, putting different airbags in the ones they tested than they did in the actual production models. That's why here in the United States, when they do all this testing, it costs a lot of money to test cars. I knew a guy who was going to build cars, right? And he found out that if he's going to build cars to mass produce them, he has to build them in the factory with the same workers that are going to mass produce them. And they can build the first models, but they got to build them in the factory with the same workers. Then the government has to test those, not a custom-made car, right? It's got to be one that's going to be the same as everything that's put out there. And these guys tried to cheat. Don't say I didn't tell you so, but I did, of course. Nissan's variable compression engine failures are under a federal investigation now. Remember, they made an engine that had variable compression rates. So instead of having a piston on a connecting rod that goes up and down that's straight, the connecting rods, cheep, cheep, cheap. They have different angles. They can be computer activated so they go this far or even higher for higher compression in the same engine, right? Well, I said, that's got to be the dumbest thing I ever heard of. They're going to break. Guess what? They're breaking now. And the feds are investigating them. So they're now opening a federal investigation involving over 450,000 Nissan Rogues, Nissan Altimas, and Infiniti QX50 models because they have knocking sounds, loss of power, metal bits in their oil pans, and total engine failure. Nissan has already made changes to the engine's main bearings and L-links since they've been on sale to address potential engine damage. But a recall hasn't been issued yet. Well, they're going to need to. If you're really Nissan and they're blowing up engines, guess what? They're still doing only now. They're variable compression engines that are extremely complex. And of course, we all knew they were going to break. Why would you make something that more complex? Now, the theory was, with variable compression, you can have high compression when you need it, low compression when you don't, and they can have power when they want and gas mileage when you don't need the power, right? Well, even that failed. I road tested one, and what did the thing get? It got like 1.5 miles per gallon better than a normal Nissan engine. To put that level of technology for such a tiny amount of better gas mileage is just absurd. And of course, now it's coming to bite them in the rear end that the stupid things are breaking. And Nissan's a troubled company anyways, right? Carlos ghosting and all that stuff that they were pulling. It's just kind of a Wild West scenario going on there. But the idea that they could make an engine like this and think it wasn't going to break. It's a new design to begin with. You know, nobody's ever had it in the real world. Now they're finding out, gee, these engines are breaking down. Yeah, because they're so complex, there's more moving parts. Making things more complex is a mistake when it comes with engines. You're better off with a simpler design, not a more complex design. It has more moving parts. The more moving parts you have, the more possibility there is of things breaking. Now they're breaking down, and I hope they recall them all. Well, here's one of the weirdest things you could ever think of. Kia in Canada is withholding car deliveries to their dealerships in Canada. Now, they have the cars, but they're hiding them all in this giant lot here, south of Kitchener, Ontario. And here is Kia's bizarre reasoning that someone figured out. The Kia of Canada does not want to look like they sold too many cars, because if they sell too many cars, then it looks like they're doing too good, and they won't get extra money for sales from the Kia company in Korea. I mean, there are people who've been waiting for months or even a year or more to get their Kia that they've ordered. It's sitting on this lot, but they're not delivering it to it. They said they're going to wait until January, because then it goes on the sales of the next year. They don't want the Kia company to make it look like they're doing too good, because then they won't get extra incentives. Now, that's just craziness. Here in the United States, there are a lot of cars hiding away. But that's a different ball game. Their ball game is, you go to the dealer in the United States here, and I've seen it in Clarksville. It looks like they got 10 cars on the lot. They got hundreds of them hiding somewhere else in the field, right? But they only got 10. Well, these are the only ones we got. You know, you got to pay this price or we'll sell it to the guy behind you. So they ramp up the price. They sell you extra options you don't want, because they say, well, you know, we can get you one that's fully loaded, but that's another $5,000, right? So the Americans are hiding them for a different reason. But the Canadians, even more bizarre. The Kia dealers are hiding them so that they don't sell as many, to make it look like their sales are down, so they get more incentives from Kia the coming year. I mean, the world has certainly gone totally insane. Well, Tesla's skipping their usual merit-based stock compensation this year for their employees. Elon, he wants it all for himself. You know, he doesn't want to share it with anybody. If he's doing good and selling a lot of cars, you know, he's supposed to share it with his guys. Well, he's not. What do you expect from a guy like that? You know, I mean, hey, he wants everything for himself. You can see he's greedy. One scheme over the next he's throwing out there. And he's not even reimbursing his workers for doing a good job, because he did sell a lot of Teslas, right? Just screwing his own employees over so he can have more money for himself. I mean, it's unbelievable. How long can it go on? I think the end is coming. A lot of people are giving up with this electric car stuff. The resale value of Teslas, which used to be super high, is now super low. I see people buying for 1/3 of the cost of the original one, and they're only like 2-3 years old. I mean, the handwriting's on the wall for that company. And he spent all that money to buy Twitter and our X, right? And he's losing his shirt on that one. I mean, the guy doesn't know what he's doing in the business world. Well, I was reading this interesting article that a new type of jet engine could bring back supersonic air travel. Well, one, I think supersonic air travel is a stupid idea. It's only for the ultra rich, right? The tickets for the Concorde cost a fortune. And of course, supersonic is super fast, right? Guess what? You use a super amount of fuel to go that fast. They're extremely inefficient machines, right? So what's the idea of making a thing that pollutes even worse than the ones that they have now? To me, it doesn't make any sense. It is an interesting idea because, as you can see here, there's a picture of the engine. It flows through, and then the gases circulate around and spin instead of the motor parts. This is a conventional jet engine, and it's got compressors that have to spin and make it go. And that's a lot of parts that can wear out. They go fast, right? Simpler, cheaper engine to make, and they claim it can go super fast. But all I have to say is we don't need that kind of speed. It's more polluting. It uses a ton more fuel to go supersonic than it does to go subsonic. To go, 400 or 500 miles an hour. Isn't that fast enough, people? You're going 400 or 500 miles up in the air. Do you really have to go 4, 5, 6, 7 times faster than that? You really don't have to, right? And of course, if you know anything, if you remember the Concorde, if you lived on the East Coast, guess what? They make big bangs when they go through the sound barrier, and they're noisy as heck. Who wants these giant, noisy, smelly machines flying through the air. Now, very interesting technology. Sure, I'm sure they're going to use it for, weapons. They can use them for missiles and stuff like that. But to use them to transport people around at supersonic speeds, I think it's just plain stupid. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.